All right, today we're going to cover some bezel setting tips. And if you're anything like me, you got a short attention span, so I'll try and make this as quick as possible. Has this ever happened to you? You got this beautiful stone that you picked up somewhere and you've spent some time creating this bezel. It's just perfect and it's just ready to set. You put your stone in there and you get your prong pusher and you go in and you start pressing the bezel around the stone, and the more you press and press, the stone just doesn't seem to get tight. And in fact, it almost seems like the more you work it, the looser it's getting. Well, it's probably happening. It's kind of frustrating, but hopefully I'll be able to help you out a little bit today. One thing you can do is, as you've got your piece of jewelry, you can take the jewelry and actually put it up next to your ear and just kind of tap it with your finger. And if that stone is loose, you'll actually hear it vibrating in there, so you know you've got a little bit of work to do. Another way you can do it is I use it's an old burr with some red gummy wax on it, and what you can do is you can grab the stone and you see it kind of sticks to the stone. You just put it on there and then you can kind of move the stone around, and if it wiggles, then you know you've got a little bit of work to do as well. So we've got a few ways to show you how to tighten that. So as you're, like I said, you're in there and you got your stone and you're pushing this down, and you've got your stone, your bezel, kind of sitting there like that, and it seems like the more you push this way, it just doesn't get tight, because what's going on is the metal has memory to it, and as you're pushing the metal in, it's actually bouncing back just a little bit. It wants to go back to its original position. So you're pushing it in and it's bouncing a little bit. You're pushing it in and it's kind of pushing back a little bit. And the more you work the metal, you're work hardening that metal. It's getting a little bit stiffer and harder, and it's actually getting a little bit more spring to it. So it seems like the more you work it, the looser the stone is getting. And that's really what's happening, is you're work hardening the metal and it's actually getting memory and it's wanting to come back. So what you want to do, you don't think about this, but you actually want to come down and push that way. You're thinking that you always want to push this way, it's pushing into the stone, setting it, but actually you want to set the stone down this way, and what will happen is you'll actually push this metal in there like this, and that's what actually holds your stone in. So you got your bezel there and it's pressed down, and you're pushing down, and it's actually grabbing the stone this way and holding it in place, and that's how you get your stones to stay solid. And there's a few tools that'll help you do that. You can try it with your prong pusher, but usually you're not going to have much luck. You're going to get in there and push and push and push, and it might get away with it. Prong pushers might work, but first tool I'll show you is called the Foredom number 15. It's a hammer handpiece. You put it on your Foredom, it attaches to your Foredom. You adjust it this way. It's actually more intense or less intense depending on how thick your bezel is, and it's foot feed controlled, so you can actually just slowly hit it and it'll just tap 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 tap, or you can hit it a little bit harder and it'll, more repetition. But these things work wonderful, especially if you're working with thicker bezels. Now on all these tools, you see the very end there, I actually take that and I'll rub that on some like 400 grit sandpaper just to give it a little bit of a grip there. It's not going to mess up your bezels at all, but it's going to keep them from slipping, because sometimes if it's polished or if it is kind of slippery there, it might slip off that bezel and hit your stone or hit a portion of your jewelry that you've already polished, and you'll leave a nice nick there, and then it's something you gotta go back and fix that now. But so on all these, on my prong pushers, on all the tools I show you, the very tip of it, I rub that on 400 grit sandpaper just to give it a little bit more grip so it doesn't slip away as easy. The second tool I'll show you, and it's a little less expensive, is the Dremel electric engraver. You can pick these up at just about any hardware store for $20 or less. They've got an adjustment right here. It goes from 1 to 5. You just turn it on and it just starts vibrating. Again, you can adjust it, for more or less, and just run around the very top of your bezel and just tap that down. Hold that stone in there. Just kind of go in there and it'll actually, hit your bezels and squeeze that stone in there. And these work good. Last tool I'll show you, it happens to be my favorite, and it might be old school, but it's an old burr and a chasing hammer. That way you can actually get in there and you can watch what you're doing. You can go in there and just tap along the top of your bezel. You can watch what's going on. You can actually see the metal moving, and you can control it. You know, if you got a ways to go, you can come in here just a little bit. You can actually just come in there and tap it that way. These things been around forever, and again, they're my favorite. I use those in most cases. I'll use those other ones as well, but I've got more control over this because I can actually see what's going on. I can see the very tip of my tool, how close I am to the stone, because again, you don't want to touch the stone with your tool, because if it's a soft stone, it's going to leave a mark or an edge there. So you want to make sure that you stay away from the stone at all times. So when you're coming in there, you're just, you know, tapping it and just working that metal and holding that stone in there. So there you go. There's a few options of tightening up your stones in bezels. I hope this helps. If you want to stay in contact with the Jewelry Monk community, keep coming back to JewelryMonk.com or visit us on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest. We're all over the place. So there you go. Go make something shiny.